thank you for joining me for this segment of That Dude Called Dad. In this segment, I hope to be able to share with you some very heartfelt memories and some themes and some things that my dad shared with me, some things I observed him doing, and the impact that he has had on me. And I want to do that in a very warm, heartfelt fashion, centered around the theme of this particular segment is going to be why it's important for fathers, for men, to be men of substance. Men of substance, all right? So, let's see. Hope you all don't mind. I'm just kind of kicking it here in my basement, relaxing. As you can see, I have on my sweats, and I'm just doing what a dude does in the privacy of his own home after a very long, hard work week. So, let's see how we're going to start this off. So, let me give you some background. I think it's important for you to understand a few things, and I think what is going to make this documentary, what's going to make this series important, is the context that I'm going to attempt to frame everything in. So, here's the background in order to give you the context, okay? I was born James Wayne Falcon in 1970. Just recently, I celebrated my 45th birthday, and at 45 years old, I am finding as a man that I'm celebrating a confidence. I'm celebrating a stride, a sway, a swing of understanding about who I am as a man, as a person, as a father. And it's a good feeling. It's a good flow. It's a good stride and swing. I feel probably more confident about who I am as a man, as a person, as a father, than I've ever felt in my adult life, at least. And I'm really excited about that. And part of that flow and that swing and that stride that I am privileged to have comes with an understanding, comes with an observation and an understanding drawn from those observations of what's happening around me. And one of the things that's really bothered me recently is the number of times I keep hearing the fact that the quality of fatherhood is poor. I'm tired of hearing about the absence of men in homes and in families, in marriages, and particularly fathers as it relates to the relationship with their children. I am sick and tired of hearing that. Now, I know that there is a lot of truth to that statistically, but as an African American man, I have to be honest, I'm especially disgusted when I hear things like that, because it gives the impression that there aren't any or haven't been any good African American fathers around, except for those semblances of fatherhood that have been portrayed on television and in the movies. And so one of the things that I want to do with this particular documentary is to be able to share from one African American man's perspective how untrue those statements are. And I also want to share, and I realize as one person, as one voice in the sea, I realize that it's one person. I'm only speaking from my experiences. However, I can tell you about 3 men at least that I feel don't fit the bill of what's typically known about fatherhood, period. I don't care what race, origin, ethnicity, cultural background you come from. Those 3 men are my father, my brother, and me. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a disclaimer before I go any further. And what I'm going to share with you is not me saying or thinking that I am anything, that I've arrived or that I'm special, to any degree, nor am I going to say that about my dad or my brother, in the sense that, not that I'm taking away from their value as they relate to me or as I view them, but I'm just, this is going to be the delivery, a very humble delivery of what I've observed from my dad. And later at a different time, I'll tell you a little bit more about my brother. But what I've observed about my dad and the interactions that I've had with him. And then I can go on to tell you about friends of mine who happen to be African American, that have wonderful relationships with their fathers and their children. So I think there needs to be a little bit of an educational process that has to happen as it relates to what's going on in the black community, or the African American community, what's going on in African American homes. And I want to have this documentary serve as kind of like an arrow, just one single arrow that's being shot, and that arrow hopefully will provide some understanding. And so to continue to frame this, here's the background. My father was born James Reed Falcon, F-A-U-L-C-O-N. And I'll explain to you why that's significant, as my last name is Falcon, F-A-L-C-O-N. I'll go into that maybe in a future segment. But as my dad was born, he was born in 1924. Okay? Unfortunately, he passed away when I was 19 years old. But he and my mother who passed in 2010, the two of them have given me at least 150 to 200 years worth of wisdom. And I'm really excited about that. So as it relates to my dad, I'm going to share with you some of the nuggets and the tidbits and the experiences that he has given to me that I'm holding on to with dear life, and that are really continuing to mold and shape who I am as a person, as a human being, as a man, and as a father. My dad was born in 1924, and per our history, we had the huge stock market crash of 1929. So my dad, just a few years before that horrific incident, an incident that really shaped the economy, and a lot of things that we do today in banking and financial practices stem from that time period. My dad would be from the generation that they call the veteran generation, the greatest generation. And so he grew up during the Great Depression. Now here's what's interesting. He saw a job on the railroad that he needed to help to provide for his family. And so he put his age up from 15 to 18 years old. And in so doing, our country was beginning to enter into World War II. And as a result of my dad just trying to get a job, doing what a lot of people did during that time, my dad was drafted. And so now at 15, he has been called to duty to defend our great nation. And it is a great nation despite many, many things. And so here a 15-year-old stands on behalf of his country with a gun in his hand, and a license to not only defend himself, but to defend the values of our country. And you can just imagine what that did to him and how that shaped his mindset. Interestingly enough, he was not that story about him doing that to get the job is not a one in a million story. That was quite common. As a matter of fact, some of my mother's brothers, some of my uncles, did this very same thing and have similar testimony. So that was kind of what transpired during those days. My dad was raised in that time period. Not only were there the tremendous financial pressures placed on individuals and families, but it was also a time of segregation. So my dad grew up in a world that was divided. African Americans lived in certain parts of the country, in the cities and counties and so forth, and the whole separate but equal thing was in full bloom. And he grew up under that weight and heaviness. That's important too. But he also grew up in a time that was very, how can I say it, very keen on the way a man should act, socially, the way women should act socially. Like the whole thing of chivalry was in full bloom at that time as well. So some of the things that I'll share from those from my dad's life have to do with how he was raised, what he learned socially, how he learned to treat women and ultimately my mother, and then the lessons he kind of passed on to me in that, having learned that and having come from that time frame. And those things are really, really crucial. If my dad were alive, he would tell you what I'm about to tell you. Most of my dad's adolescent years into his early 20s, my dad would be what you would call a knucklehead. And that meant that he just kind of drifted along. He didn't really, plug into a lot. Even though he was in the service, he did what was necessary because he was a dutiful person. But he couldn't read or write for the longest time. And learning was not important to him until much later. And much, much later, learning became something that drove my father. In this segment, I'm talking to you about being a man of substance. And my dad was a person of substance. And what I mean by that is he later taught himself how to read and write. He later, I think when I was in either the later years in elementary or maybe even in high school, my dad had gone back to high school, finished his studies, gotten his diploma, and had enrolled in one of the local community colleges. And he was studying sociology because it was really important for him to finish a process. But more than that, my dad had a mantra, and he had a way that he lived as he continued to grow and to develop as a human being and as a man. And his mantra was, you must learn one new thing every single day. That's the mantra that my dad lived by. And I remember waking up, especially on Saturday mornings in the house that I grew up in, and my mom would be busy working and dad would be sitting in his favorite chair watching whatever his early morning television routine was, and sometime I would find him kind of nodding off, be resting, and on the floor next to the chair would be stacks and stacks of books, he had an insatiable appetite for reading and for learning. Now, keep in mind, I was born in 1970, so growing up, I know this will be weird to some of you listening, but I grew up in an age before the internet. Yeah, no, the internet wasn't always here, but I grew up in a world where there was no internet available to commoners, right? And so everything was done the hard way, the old-fashioned way, which was reading through books. In the basement of the home that I grew up in, we had a room, and one whole wall of that room was just nothing but the books that my father read. He read everything. He was a student of everything. I would wake up early in the morning, and I would hear my dad stirring around. He would be in the bathroom, and he would be singing something, or he would be quoting Bible verses. He loved Shakespeare. He would be quoting. He loved Edgar Allan Poe and the poem "The Raven." Yay to all of you Baltimoreans and fans out there. Right? My dad was a huge Edgar Allan Poe, and specifically the poem "The Raven." He was a huge fan of that poem, and he recited verses of that all the time. So this man was just completely an unusual person in the sense that language, learning, communication, being able to be in certain settings and to be able to fit that setting as best as he possibly could, to take things to the next level. He was a pioneer. He was an initiator. He was a person that was going to be in the front of the line if there was a line. He was a person that could lead from the back, or he could lead from the front, or he was a person that was very comfortable being a team member, period. He didn't have to be up front necessarily, but his abilities always, as I watched, propelled him forward. My point is this: he was a man of great substance. So by the time he and my mother got together and got married, my dad was 45 years old. interestingly enough, he was exactly the age I am now. At this stage in my life, as a 45-year-old, I have 4 children and 4 grandchildren and 1 goddaughter. And, and they range in ages right now. But think about a man at 45 just having a child. And at that point, it was a second child, as my brother is older. And what's interesting in this whole process is by the time I was born, my dad had been seasoned. He'd had enough experiences via the military and in life that he was a man of substance. I remember conversations that he and my mother had where they kind of laughed and joked about having another child, and here, lo and behold, here I come. And it totally shocked and surprised them, and they kind of laughed about, my mom being pregnant again at that season in their lives. You got to remember, in the 1970s, for a 44-year-old woman to be pregnant was very costly in terms of health considerations. A 40-plus-year-old woman bearing a child, there were a number of considerations and things that I'm sure they went through. And my mother even shared some of those pieces a little bit later on. But so here this man is, and he's having a son. And I think what really is impressive is that by this point in his life, he is a man of great substance. He has a wealth of attention, compassion, intellect, and just willingness overall to give. And that really is what has touched me all my life, is reflecting back on the interactions I've had with my father and seeing him in that mode. Was my dad perfect? No, not at all. Was he an angel? Was he, was he faultless? Absolutely not. And I don't want to try to communicate anything differently. He certainly had his faults. He definitely had his demons that he wrestled with. But my point that I want to kind of share in this first segment is he had a great deal to give. And that ability, that willingness to give has literally done miracles for me. The conversations, the depth of the conversations, the level of love and wisdom that my dad would dip into like this well and pull things out, and the stuff he would say. And when he would say the most meaningful things. He would do the most meaningful things. To my mom, to people, to family members, how he interacted, to me, to my brother. How he interacted was absolutely amazing. And so one of the things that I want to share, and I don't mean to come off self-righteously at all, and I definitely don't mean to come off as if I had some perfect upbringing and I am this perfect person now, because that ain't the case. Trust me. Ask any of my friends and family, they will tell you. But what I want to share is that if you are a man and you are thinking about having children, if you are a selfish, self-centered individual, again, I'm not trying to come off preaching, but if you are a selfish, self-centered individual, do yourself a favor and wear a condom. And I mean that as a man to men. Because if you become a father with a selfish, self-centered mentality, you are going to destroy an entire generation, beginning with whatever children you have. Fatherhood is not for the squeamish. It is definitely more than a notion. It is not for the faint at heart. It is not for the weak-minded. It is not for the man who lives totally for himself. And we've all been there. Again, I'm 45 years old. Was I that way? Yes. At 44, 43, 42. What I'm saying is it's a process. you learn how to lose a little bit of yourself for the sake of serving others. But I feel like I'm getting better at that. And when I decided to marry and have children, I at least had the example that my dad set for me so that I would know the level of what it took to be a giver. Now, obviously, I didn't have the experiential knowledge and understanding, but I at least, if personally, because I was then and am still a student of this whole process, believe you me, but I watched my dad. And it was just amazing in terms of the things that he would do and say. He was a man of substance. So I want to encourage you, men, as a man, to men. Be a man of substance. I know every woman would appreciate a man of substance. And trust me. Trust you, me. Trust me when I say that your children will definitely appreciate you being a man of substance. Men of substance are going to get what's necessary, do what's necessary. They're going to learn it. They're going to try to take it all in. They're going to try to filter it. They're going to try to set themselves up with whatever information they gather, with whatever experiences they have, and they're going to try to package it so that they become the best people they can be. And then they want to repackage it even tighter, even neater, and they want to give that to their children, because men of substance realize one thing. Everything that they're doing is a seed sowing process, not only into their children, but into the generations to follow. I think one of the most horrible things that any parent could ever have happen is for one of their children one day to say to them, you know what, Dad? I absolutely hated you from the time I was X years old because you said this to me and I couldn't stand it then, and it has haunted me. I think statements like that are just incredibly detrimental to the individual, and they're kind of like wounds that can never heal. And so a person that has had something like that said or done to them by their dad, that's going to be a hemorrhaging process that's just going to keep on going. And it's going to destroy a child and their understanding of what a father is and should be. Now, granted, again, I'm not a saint. My dad wasn't a saint. My brother was here. He's not a saint, and my brother's still living. I mean, if he was here with me on this couch, he would say the same thing. We've all said things that we've regretted. But we need to be mindful that some of the best experiences that we can draw from are from some of those horrible experiences. And we need to do our level best to make sure we filter what in the heck comes out of this trap right here. Because it can either shape a child's life or it can destroy a child. And we want to be about the business of building up our children so that they are solid foundations for the generations to come. I hope one day to be able to sit at a table and to look around and stare into the faces of my great-grandchildren. I'm already staring into the faces. I already have the privilege and the honor of staring into the faces of my grands. And I've had for some time the privilege and the honor of staring into the face of my children. I am praying and asking God to grant me enough grace, and I can live wisely enough to be able to sit at a table and to be able to enjoy my great-grands. And I'm looking for that day when one of my grands, hopefully, grands, if you're listening, much later, listen to me, you hear me? Here, Papa? Much later than sooner. Anyway, hope my grands, who are babies right now, can be able to, I can't wait for them to call me up, Papa, guess what? So-and-so just gave birth. My grands are all very small kids, but I'm looking for those announcements, and I'll be just as excited as I was when my grands were born, and remembering the phone calls and the announcements and being at hospitals and so forth. And so I'm trying to take notes still from what my dad showed me, taught me, and modeled in front of me. And I think it's important as a man to share this with you men. Be men of substance. mind what you say, mind what you do, and make sure that you have the filter on every single day, that you understand that a child is watching. Excuse me. And it's important. And I know this comes off as incredibly weighty, and I know it comes off as being really heavy, but it is what it is. Again, I shared with you what I've learned. Fatherhood is not for the faint at heart. It's not for the weak-minded. It's not for the squeamish. It's not for the selfish and self-centered. And this is why. One of the last things that I'll share with you in this first segment of That Dude Called Dad, and this first segment of why it's important to be a man of substance. Here's one of the things I want to share with you, and I'll try not to burst into tears as I recount this. This is really impactful to me, and I hope you don't mind. I'm just being James at this point, and I'm just kind of sharing some things from the heart. There's no scripts here. I mean, I'm just chilling with my sweats on, and I just want to get this information out. I'm tired of listening to people talk in total ignorance of fatherhood. Yet, I do understand why there is this ignorance, because of the absences and the abuses, and I understand those things. So all I want to do, I feel like I have pockets full of money, and I don't. I'm broke. I can show you. Nothing but lint in these pockets. But I feel like I have what would equates to pockets full of money, of just love and tenderness and experience from the interactions I had with my dad, that I just want to give away. I feel like I got millions that I just want to give away, and I want to be the best student I can be, and I want to bring anybody else along in that same mindset, because when we do these things, when we are men of substance, we all win. We win in our homes. Our children grow up much happier, much more healthier. Society wins because they get a solid citizen. You know, as dads raising daughters, some young men out there are going to be joy-filled when they see my girls. And, you know, of course, you know, I keep a shotgun loaded near the... Anyway, I'll tell you that. Anyway, okay, so back to the script. Okay, so any man seeing my girls, I want them to see a woman of substance. Because, by the way, I have 4 girls. 3 grand boys, 1 granddaughter. I have 4 daughters and a goddaughter. So 5 girls I am responsible for in many ways. And that just thrills me. But I want these young ladies, talking about my daughters, to be women of substance, who will draw and attract men of substance. So here's what my dad told me. My dad died at 19, so I guess at this point in time, I'm sitting at the kitchen table. I must have been about 22-ish. And here's what my dad said to me. Or, I'm sorry, here's what my mother said to me after my father passed away. My mother said to me, "Son, I want to share something with you that your father said." And she said to me, "Your dad told me to tell you this." Now, this is a whole other documentary that I'll have to do on my mother and her wisdom, because this woman was absolutely extraordinary. Like, the two of these people together were, in my mind, the real dynamic duo on planet Earth. They are just amazing in terms of how they work together. So my mother says, here's what your dad wanted you to know. Here's the thing that he left for you. And this is what she said. She said to me, "Your dad wants you to be man enough to make decisions, but to be man enough to live with the consequences." Did you hear that? Like, the hair stands up on the back of my neck now. Every time I tell this story, every time I tell that piece, literally the hair on my body is standing at attention. Did you hear what I just said? My mother, in her incredible wisdom, knew the time to tell me this. Dad died at 19. She's telling me this. I'm like 22, 21, 22, somewhere in there. So how she gave me this, and the timing is just phenomenal, blows my mind. But the fact that this awesome man of substance, even after he's dead, even after he's gone, is leaving me instructions as to how to live as a human being. Man, forgive me, that just is amazing to me. And it's so amazing that to this day, I am living in understanding of that. And that phrase has shaped my life. It's one thing to pound your chest and say, I'm a man. It's one thing to pound your chest and bark orders and demand and do different things out of feeling like you have been given some kind of authority as a ruler and a dictator. But it's another thing when you can, in tenderness and in wisdom and in the substance that you've acquired, say to your children something while you're living and something after you're gone that continues to do a molding and a shaping work in their lives. I'm going to tell you, and I don't mind saying it, folks that know James W. Falcon know I'm a crier. I don't apologize for that. 6'3", 200 pounds. Don't worry about the poundages. It's not important. Just listen to me. 6'3", and at 270, whatever I am, I cry. I cry, and I'll tell you that story a little bit later as well. I cry because I saw my dad cry. I cry because I saw my brother cry. And I cry because I have been given license from real men to cry as a real man. And that's a different segment. But this man called Dad said to his wife, who in turn said to me, as if she were bringing out a trunk that had millions of dollars in it, and she flips open the lid of this trunk to reach inside this trunk to hand me my inheritance. Wow. And what she says to me is incredible. She says, son, your dad wanted you to be man enough to make decisions, but to be man enough to live with the consequences. Yeah, that's deep. That's heavy. I mean, I'm talking thousands of pounds heavy. But I'm thankful that my father was a man of substance. As a man to men, here's my challenge to you. Are you a man of substance? Whether you have children already, whether you are a pop-pop or a great pop-pop, or whether you're a single man with no children, whether you're separated, divorced, whatever your status is, this is my time. I want to spend these next few seconds to talk to men. I'm hoping that this will go over like matchlight and all over planet Earth. I'm hoping that this little clip gets into people's homes and shows up on their mobile devices, because never mind the fact that this is a black man talking to you about his experiences from his black father. Never mind that. Don't see me right now in this moment as an African American man. See me as a man. And I am speaking as a man to any man that will listen to me. You and I must be men of substance. We must be able to figure out, like we love tools, right? Men, we love tools, right? Love to reach into your shed, grab the saw, the power saw, run that thing. So, you know, we got the DeWalt going, right? We love that. Tinker with your car. We love mechanical stuff. Guess what? We need to be mechanically inclined as it relates to our families, to our children in particular. Don't let it be said by your children that you were a dad that was that man somewhere out there that they didn't know. And if that's your case now, I would encourage you, seriously encourage you, fix it. Do something about it. Draw closer to your children. Make a concerted effort to get to where they are and be a part of their lives. We all have relationships that need tweaking. And I would encourage you as a man to men, if some of your relationships with your children need tweaking, if you have children, then fix them. Apply yourself, because your impact is going to be generational. Okay? But this has got to happen. This is real. It's just got to happen. What can you do now? And then, we don't like to think about our own passing on, but one day it's going to happen. So what can you do, men, to continue to give to your children long after you're gone? My dad didn't leave me a whole lot of money. I certainly don't live in a lap of luxury now. But as it compares to statements like that, it almost makes money not even important. Notice what I said, almost now. I ain't crazy. We got to pay bills. I need to eat. I'm a big dude. Okay, all right, back to the script. All right, so we have to be able to know what's valuable, what has value. And it's those things that we need to give our children. That dude called Dad, for me, was an amazing man. And I can only hope that that dude you call Dad was just as amazing. If he was absent, if he was not the kind of person you care to talk or think about, then I'm sorry. But I can only urge and encourage you to become that man for your children. It's really, really important. Believe me when I tell you. I hope one day to have, in the course of me doing this, taping in this documentary, I hope to have some of my children come in and say a few things. And again, not that I'm a saint, but I hope that it's obvious to them that I'm trying to be a better man, and that my goal is to be a man of substance. Thank you. This has been James W. Falcon, founder of Encouragement is Key. Do me a favor. If any of what I said mattered, if it impacted you, if it made sense, if you could relate to it, if you felt like you like this whole approach and the purpose behind why I'm doing this, then share this video, share this link with as many friends and family members as you possibly can. I hope that this goes viral. Not that I want anything or need anything out of this. What I want is to encourage people. That's what I'm about. And I know it sounds corny, but I've spent the last 5 years building an encouragement-based platform. And I have a tagline that I developed along the way. And it goes something like this: encouragement. Yep, it's corny until you need some. And that's absolutely true. So, who is this big black man talking about encouragement? James W. Falcon. Is he real? Is he sincere? Absolutely. And I think anybody that knows me know that I've been in this mode most of my life. And it's just recently that I have discovered the use of social media and other media platforms to be able to get the message of encouragement out to any and to everybody that needs it. Do me a favor. Go to my blog page called Encouragement is Key. If you just simply Google James W. Falcon's Encouragement is Key, you'll find me. Go to my blog site or go to the Facebook page called Encouragement is Key. Visit the page, like the page, so that you can get frequent updates, because I guarantee, by the grace of God, that there'll be more of this series and much more under this umbrella that I've created and am continuing to create, called Encouragement is Key. This is being brought to you by the incredible company called Fatch TV, and I'm so very thankful for the founder and owner, Brother Larry, Mr. Larry Tucker, just an incredible visionary who has made this available. So for those of you that are watching this and that will come across this video, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come into your homes. Thank you for allowing me to come onto your mobile devices and to take up your time. And I can only hope that you are as excited about this topic as I am delivering this. James W. Falcon here. Until the next time you and I get a chance to be in front of each other, do this for me. And whatever you do, get, be, and stay encouraged.